We'll call the meeting to order. I think it's 5:34. Awesome. And we'll start with a roll call. Gary, if you would.
Jim Barnwell,
Here.
Dave Ball,
Here.
Phil Check,
Here.
Eric Carlson,
Here.
Barry McKenna, here, Tom Metcalf, absent, and Bill Lynch, absent.
If we would, could we all stand for the pledge of allegiance? Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the meeting agenda for the special workshop. Motion to approve agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Okay, tonight we've invited Police and Vandenbrink here to give us a workshop. It's going to be a workshop. We'll be asking them questions. It's been a while since they were last had a meeting here, so we'd appreciate them coming and being on the Zoom meeting. So, Gary or Scott, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh,
Little Gary out there.
This is an observer, Gary.
Gary, it's all yours.
Let me text him, make sure he's on. While we're waiting for him, I can give a brief update on the treatment plant permitting process, where we stand there currently. The field work took place late February. We're actually able to complete the drilling for some of the test wells on site there to evaluate the groundwater in the area and begin the permitting process for the treatment plant. Actually able to get in there with not having to do any clearing, so that was a great success. Our team now is working through getting the data and samples pulled together from the field testing there. Next steps for that would be authorization for F&V to start the full hydrogeological report and groundwater permit application, which is taking the data that was collected in the field there and performing the necessary calculations to demonstrate that the site can receive the volume of water that we're looking at, as well as then on the permit application side, working with Eagle to get permit limitations for what the treatment plant would have to treat to as part of the preliminary design process. What we've got for soil borings, everything looks very promising, good sand to a good depth. So that's all very promising.
An authorization, how long do you think that will take to get your response from DNR or Eagle, excuse me?
It's a great
I
question.
know, that's a wild one.
They have up to 180 days to respond once we submit the application. We've talked to them about this project. They know it's coming. They said they would do their best, but 6 months is probably a safe timeline.
Thank you.
Yep.
Gary's not on there. Scott, can you just explain a little bit about, because we need to get into the aerial photography and ground control. You know, I know there's an urgency, at least in my opinion, on that. What is your, and what is involved in it?
Sure, yeah. So the authorization that we sent to you earlier this afternoon involves the flight over the service area and the treatment plant. And they will scan the area and take aerial photographs that we can ultimately use for topographic mapping, instead of having to individually survey every inch of the collection system. We can scan it via plane and use that to develop some of the topographic mapping we need. And then as part of that, we'll set approximately 50 control points across the service area, so we can kind of correlate those with what the plane picks up and what we shoot on the ground. We'll use those as control points to calibrate the survey ultimately. And the sense of urgency on this one is primarily because once the tree growth and vegetation starts coming in here in the spring, we lose some of the definition on that aerial photography.
What's the accuracy on that, you know, and vertical? I mean, is it 1 foot contours typically?
I would have to check with Gary on that one. I am not sure offhand for sure. But I can follow up on that.
That'd be good. And I looked at the map and just wanted to talk to you about it tomorrow a little bit, what we're doing exactly. Thank you.
Gary, are you concerned about anything that would hold you up in doing the aerial survey? Gary, are you concerned about anything that would hold you up as far as doing the survey? Anything, any holdups that you can foresee? Do we have to pay you? Do you have to arrange for the plane? Anything that would hold it up?
Yeah,
Can you guys
Scott?
hear?
Yeah, he was just asking about the, you know, what are the pitfalls if we don't move immediately as far as holding it up, as far as, you know, weather or whatever.
Yeah, so I did just pull up our quote for the mapping that we got from the pilot. It is 1 foot contour intervals. So I did confirm that for you. And they said typically between 7 and 10 days they can get a plane up in the air. And so weather is kind of the only unknown that we have. Obviously, we need a clear day to fly it. But just authorization from you guys signing the PSA that you will be paying for the work, and then we can get going on scheduling it.
Hey, thank you. One of the questions I've had from a number of people are, how many firms in Michigan do the actual flying? I know Abrams Aerial used to do it a long time ago, and I think there was one called Airland, if I remember right, but are I am assuming it's still limited number of firms.
Yeah, that's a good question. A little outside of my area of expertise, but we got our proposal that we got was from Williams Aerial Mapping, and our survey group has worked with them in the past. I've had good success.
So do you have the authorization forms that we have to sign? Oh, okay, good.
think I lost audio for Jim and Dave.
Is Gary on yet? Does anybody know? His phone shows up. He's connected.
Phone shows up. Let me try to call him real quick. I apologize.
Yep. Is he muted? Looks like. Tell him to unmute. He doesn't want to talk to us.
You'd think he'd be an expert at this by now, but he's slacking here. Let's go. It says you're in the meeting. He said he's in the waiting room. It says on his screen. Is there a way we can let him in?
Is Gary's iPhone? He said he can hear us.
This is Gary, but I am an observer. I am not your consultant.
Somebody else.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. That helps.
Maybe he wants to talk though.
Is there anybody? Oh, it looks like 989. That's Gary's number.
It's his phone number. Does anybody know? Two, 379. Yeah, that's it. 989. Hey, Gary, you there now?
Hello?
Yeah, you finally made
Hello?
it. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's all you
Sorry
now.
about that.
Welcome to the meeting,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. Sorry for the technological issues I've been having here. So anyway, group, what we wanted to talk about a little bit was our approach moving forward in terms of how we want to construct the laterals from the right-of-way line into the homes themselves. And the one thing that we looked at after multiple conversations with the GLUA, people around the lake, both on the lakeside and inland, is that they thought there was an inequity with how we were going to assess people for the laterals from the right of way to the structure. So the one thing that we looked at was how can we keep the cost equitable and make it fair for both the long connections or long laterals to the home and to the short laterals. So what we wanted to do was just kind of give you an overview of some thoughts that we would like the GLUA to consider as we move forward with the project. So as we move forward and once the engineering plans have been permitted and ready for construction bids, a couple things we have to do. Number one is we have to send the project out for bid. So what we anticipate or what we envision because of the time frame is that we would have one contract for the wastewater treatment plant and multiple contracts, possibly 3 to 4 contracts for the low pressure collection system, which would be divided up into districts or sections, which would allow for more contractor bidding and would allow contractors that do not have a $70 million bonding limit to be able to bid the project and get some of the work, which would also include the laterals. But one of the concerns that we had was the work that was outside of the right-of-way on individual properties. And as everyone knows, every property around Higgins Lake is unique, and every individual has a specific need. And I think things that you could look at was future additions, garages, timing when they would be there, and timing when they would want it done. So coordination with the property owner, their timing, and the necessary upgrades, potentially the electric panel within the structure, are paramount, along with the plumbing. So as we looked at that, we thought the GLUA should consider some of the advantages if we were to take the work from the right-of-way to the structure and let the homeowner be responsible for that. And a couple of things that we looked at was scheduling. If we included in the general contractor's contract, again, looking at 3 to 4 possible contracts, the cost would be substantially increased due to trying to schedule the work with the homeowner in a progression type of approach, meaning that, you know, subcontractor that's putting in the laterals would certainly want to do all the laterals down a certain street at one time. Whereas if that timing doesn't happen, that subcontractor will then claim extras because he couldn't do it the way he wanted to do it. So if the homeowner can schedule that at their convenience and at their time of year, we feel that's a positive. The second thing is coordination. If it's under a general contractor's contract, then he's got to be responsible to coordinate that work with the individual homeowner and try to get it scheduled. And the efforts and time to do that is going to cost a lot of money. If we can include it in the homeowner or not include it in the general contractor's contract, then the homeowner can coordinate that and the work at their convenience, which would be the time of year they want to put it in, and who the contract would be, if who they would want to have them install it. So then that leads into contractor selection. So if we do a general contractor and a general contractor approach, what will happen is the general contractor will select a subcontractor who we don't know who the subcontractor will be. And then that subcontractor will then most likely be an out-of-town subcontractor, which, you know, how is he going to schedule the work with a local homeowner that's up at Higgins Lake when he's not around? So then he'll be dictating timing, when they can put it in, and what's most likely beneficial to that contractor. If we have the homeowner be responsible for that, then the homeowner can select the contractor of their choosing and be comfortable with who would be doing the work and then scheduling the work at the same time. The other things that we looked at was site constraints, lateral route, and stemp tank location. So if we do it under the general contractor's contract, as we put it out for bid, then the exact route of the lateral, or the route of the lateral going into the home would have to be exactly determined. Location of the tank, site constraints, landscaping will all have to be known before the general contractor could bid it. But we can do that on a design drawing. However, the general contractor would still have to go out. They would have to look at each lot individually to determine what they felt the appropriate cost would be, which they're not going to have enough time to do that in the time frame that's necessary to bid the project, which is normally 30 to 60 days. And then when they have an unknown, they're either going to raise their price substantially, or at the end of the day, they're going to ask for a change order to recover any unknown conditions. And that's why we think that not going with the general contractor is the correct route, because then the homeowner can meet with the contractor of their choice. They can discuss the best location of the step tank and the routing of the lateral, which would include any landscaping conditions that would need to be restored to minimize cost. So at the end of the day, we looked at how can we save money overall for the project and for the homeowners around Higgins Lake. Well, we feel that by not going through a general contractor, we can save the 10 to 20% markup that he would have on his subcontractors and his materials for the work that would be completed. We go that route, GLUA can negotiate and purchase the step tank, the pumping system and control panel directly from the manufacturer, which will save costs for the community, and they're going to pay actual cost with no GC markup. And we've estimated that potential savings could be as high as $3 million. The second reduction that we would have in the project is that we could reduce the design engineering effort, which we estimated at a potential saving of $4 million. Then obviously the reduction of on-site work, where the homeowner would not be required to pay a contractor prevailing wage, federal wage, and state regulations, which could save another $1.6 million. And then that would eliminate anything for unforeseen extras or change orders. So we feel that that is a positive to the project to help reduce costs, to help eliminate scheduling problems or site constraints or lateral routes or step tank locations. And we feel that that is, we feel that that is the best solution to help reduce costs for this project. The other thing that we looked at was, the contractor would still have to be required by GLUA to meet the right qualifications, and he would have to have the appropriate liability and insurance coverage that would protect the homeowner before he started the work. So in essence, the GLUA would be responsible to purchase the step tank, step pump, and control panel. They would issue connection permits as people would come in to connect to the system. They would issue the permits. They would check out the contractor's qualifications, which they would have a list of to make sure the contractor was qualified. They would perform the on-site inspections, which would be done by GLUA staff. They would obtain as-built information that we would then put in a GIS website so that you would have that. And then they would coordinate the abandonment of the old septic tank with the health department. We feel that overall that would help save, the residents and the GLUA many millions of dollars to get the same project done that we would have if we went through a general contractor.
Gary? This is Jim. Typically in infrastructure, is it typical that the utility company or sewer or water runs it just to the property line, or is that the typical way, just to right?
Typically, that's what we do on all projects, is we run it to the right-of-way line, and then the homeowner is responsible to take it from that point into the home.
You mentioned you're suggesting possibly the GLUA would buy all the equipment so that it's all compatible. And then basically that would be could that be part of the assessment?
Yeah, that would be part of the assessment. And the one good thing about that is that GLUA can buy it, negotiate a price, and they're not paying a contractor markup on it. So they're just paying exactly what it costs. Where if we bid it and we do competitive bid, the general contractor is typically going to take a huge percentage markup on that material, which you guys would save.
Ultimately, the property owner saves then.
Yeah, the property owner would then save that savings. That savings would be passed on to the property owner.
Open discussion.
Well, when you're done.
Go ahead.
No, you're doing good. Go ahead.
No, go.
So Gary, I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
As far as the homeowner arranging for the work to be done, is that something that can be, are those costs something that can be financed? Because we
I
heard from the
believe what-
USDA that those costs are not subject to financing through the USDA.
Those costs, depending upon what funding agency we would go through, you could do that through GLUA through a conventional bond, which would be the step tank, the controls and the pumps. And then we've discussed the option of putting a stipend in so that everybody would get some money for that connection that would be paid for as part of the out of the assessment, and then the balance would be paid by the homeowner. So if you had a lot that was 50 foot from the right-of-way line, obviously their cost is a lot different than somebody that's 400 foot from the right-of-way line. So we want to try and get some equitable solution so that everybody pays the same, but those that are longer away obviously would pay more, and that would be on the homeowner to pay for that.
So how can we find out if we can get financing for that stipend we're talking about?
That would probably be through a bond, but would not go through USDA or Clean Water SRF.
Yeah, I think we talked,
That would be
I've looked a little bit.
conventional bond.
Yeah, I looked at it, you can't do certain things through USDA.
Right.
And Clean Water has different rules altogether too. But municipal bonds, have a lot less, strings attached. You're borrowing money and you can then distribute it.
So can we possibly borrow from two sources?
You can borrow from as many sources as we want, is my understanding.
Okay. Good enough. So I have another question for you. Help me understand this. You talked about saving costs for GLUA because of the scheduling issue. But if we went with the homeowner arranging for the scheduling and hiring their own subcontractor to do that work on their property, isn't it the same scheduling problem? And I guess what I'm looking at is, wouldn't you get a better price, if you will, a quantity discount for GLUA doing, or for a general contractor arranging for the lateral work rather than individuals trying to arrange their own pricing?
No, and here's why. Is because when a general contractor hires a sub to do the laterals, he wants to do it in a priority fashion, street to street. Well, if you've got 3 or 4 people on that street that don't want it done in August, they want it done in November, then the subcontractor is going to come back and say they want an extra to remobilize. So the best thing that we found over the years is that homeowners can get a local contractor, negotiate their own price, have them done at the same time, and then they save money versus going through a general contractor with a subcontractor, because it's a whole different story when they do the bid, when they put it into GLUA at the time of the bid of the overall project. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of things that we don't have control of. And then what they're going to do is they're going to either raise their price in the bid, or they're going to ask for a change order at the end of the day to do that work because of a change condition.
Gary, I have a question. You started out talking that you would have a contractor for the wastewater treatment plant. Would
Yes.
that be a separate contractor for the runs? Or
Yeah,
the same?
yeah, no, it would, the wastewater treatment plant would be a separate contract. The low pressure collection system would be multiple contracts. And those contractors would be directional drilling contractors that would be doing that type of work. The treatment plant is process work, which would include mechanical, electrical, concrete, site work, piping, things like that.
But they're separate bids then?
Yes, they would be separate bids. So the low pressure collection system would be divided into certain districts or what we call sections. And so we would put those out for bid. We would put those out for bids in like a 5-day increment. So we bid one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one Wednesday and Thursday. And so that all the contractors that do that type of work can then put in a bid, and then if they didn't get the job, the next day they can bid it again. And then, you know, you can do that all over a series of a couple of days to be more competitive so that we get the best price for the GLUA.
I'll ask another question unless somebody else wants to. Gary, a little bit different subject. Can you tell us, or do you know of any other municipalities in the state of Michigan that are currently putting in a step system?
At this point, I don't know. I do not know any personally, but I'm sure, you know, there's other project managers at F&V that do. I know we just finished a couple. I just finished up a low pressure sewer system in Breckenridge and in Croswell, but those step systems are already in.
Breckenridge and Croswell. Thank you.
Gary, this is Jim again. Do you know if like local contractors, if we have them do this work, do they have to pay prevailing wages and,
They
you
do
know,
not,
meet all the,
because if the property owner hires them, there's no federal regulations or state regulations on prevailing wage, number one. Number two, the BABA requirements, the Iron and Steel Act does not apply. So the contractors will be able to get better pricing on materials, which is a plus. So you can have your local contractors do it. You've got very well-qualified local contractors up around Higgins Lake that can do this work. Then they can schedule it so that they can fulfill that need with their other work, and it'll be more competitive.
Gary, this is Dave Hall. Could you explain
Hey,
what a
Dave.
prevailing wage is? And does it benefit us and how does it hurt us?
Well, prevailing wage is a requirement. It's called Davis-Bacon Act. The Davis-Bacon Act was passed years ago so that workers, regardless of what they were doing, whether they were an equipment operator or if they were a laborer or a pipe guy, they would all be paid a fair wage based upon the federal government's prevailing wage rates, which included benefits, which would be retirement and things like that. So prevailing wage on a project, which USDA does not require prevailing wage, but a prevailing wage project typically will raise a project cost around 5 to 10%, depending upon the contractor. And a lot of local contractors up north, I don't know if they pay prevailing wage, they may pay close to that, but you know, you're looking at a 5 to 10% increase in project cost.
Gary, another question off the subject. I don't know if you want to address this or not here, but maybe you can get back with us. Do you have a list of, or do you know of, people we can go to, organizations we can go to apply for grants for this project?
Well, we can certainly talk about that. USDA has been talked about. However, because of your blended median household income, you exceed the USDA requirement threshold because you have to be 80% of the median household income. The USDA may not be, at this point, may not be a viable candidate. We've got your Clean Water SRF funding. However, we've applied to the Clean Water SRF funding agency for funds for loan dollars. We're not eligible for grant funding because you are not overburdened or significantly overburdened based on your median household income. And right now, everything that we see is conventional bonding or municipal bonds are just as attractive as this Clean Water SRF if we could get into and receive funds out of Clean Water SRF. But their funding limits are going down next year because they're losing the ARPA money and the bill grant money. So all they're going to have is conventional loan funding with a small amount of grant funding, but we won't be eligible for grant funding because our median household income, which will be blended between the two communities, exceeds that threshold.
So I understand what you're saying, but there's numerous local places that you can apply for funds, like from Consumers Energy and numerous other places. Are you familiar with, or is somebody in your firm familiar with smaller funds we can apply for?
Well, I guess we'd have to take a look at it. We'd have to see what the criteria is and what we could apply for. Because a lot of those grants are, again, based on need, based on median household income. So we could certainly work with, GLUA to see what would be available and see what would be possible. Now, USDA does have a program for fixed income residents to make these improvements on site. And I know we've talked about this before, but based upon their income, they're eligible to receive grant funding through USDA to make those on-site improvements. That's based on age and based on income.
Is there any way you can look at your past customers, clients, and see where they got their grants from and maybe give us some information as to what's available?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Gary, just to clarify, you're of the opinion right now because of our, delays, and now we're not disadvantaged community. The interest and everything else with clean water and USDA, because of all the, say, prevailing wages and buy American and only use US steel and all the other things, that the municipal bonds may be a more competitive option for us at this time?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Based upon the interest rate, based upon no restrictions in federal and state requirements, government regulations, it's very competitive.
Thank you. Now, do you see an advantage of keeping money in the community by using local contractors to do those installations?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The local contractors have a great relationship with all the people around Higgins Lake. And I believe, and I firmly believe that, the work will be done as well and you've got somebody to call in a year or two if something goes wrong, they're going to be right back there to fix it. Versus trying to get a subcontractor out of Detroit that may never want to come back.
Gary, we're gonna open it up to the public and see if they have a couple of questions.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, please state your name and. I don't, yeah. Thank you.
Dave Kniffy, 2834 West Stevens Lake Drive. Dealing with what Gary was talking about and having the homeowners do the work for the township to go out and get bidding, chase the contractor, decide on the design of the laterals to the residents and tanks, electrical connections. You're asking the residents to work for the townships. They do not have the knowledge to even talk to contractors in most cases, knowing about designs or what's required. The other question or problem that I see is those homes that would need electrical boxes, service supplies upgraded will be the lower cost houses that do not have this the service to handle the step system. The more expensive houses are already upgraded. They don't need as much cost to hook up the step system. So you're penalizing the residents that have the lower cost homes or residents or have less money to do the work. That's totally unfair to the residents.
Yeah, I'd like to just answer that. It's always been that the homeowner was going to be responsible to upgrade their service and bring it to a panel on the side of the house. So that's not a accurate depiction of what it's always been. It's always been. And as far as they're going to just coordinate, they would have to coordinate with their electrician. They would have had to. They would have had to coordinate with a plumber to make any internal connections. And then we would have done it. Now they'll be able to hire one person that could, hopefully, a couple of the local people will get together and they'll be able to do it. It won't be like they'll have to have expertise. There'll be some that we have licensed and trained if this goes through, if ever it went through, I believe, Gary. That's what they do downstate for anybody that connects to a sewer system, that they have to be trained, have insurance and post bonds and pay fees, and then it's inspected.
No,
Gary, you can expound on it.
I'm sorry?
So the only
not even
difference I see is in the contract, because the homeowner would have had to do the scheduling with the general contractor anyways. He just has to sign the contract is all the difference is.
The residents do not have the knowledge. So since they don't have the knowledge, they can actually end up hiring a contractor that would not be the best contractor, which could actually cost more money for that homeowner, kind of like a car repair place. You can get good repair places, you can get bad ones, and then cost you more. The other question I've got is you're basically saving costs because you've got the residents becoming the project manager. They're working for the township at no cost. You can't do that. Okay. So those are the things that I see right off. You're penalizing because it was supposed to be a turnkey situation. It's no longer a turnkey. You're benefiting those that have the more expensive houses because they don't have to pay as much for the connections and the laterals and et cetera. I happen to be one of them that's already upgraded. But I'm fighting for those that are not, those that cannot afford this system, which basically is the worst scenario you can have. And there's a flyer that you've got there. I don't have the time to go through, talking about why the step system is so great. Okay, 90% of it is misleading. Okay, your cost is based on 20 years of life, not 40 years, like a gravity system would be based on. Okay,
Thank you.
Oh, I think that, so no decision has been made on whether it's a general contractor or subcontractors. The reason we're.
Looked at, a lot of this was looked at because of
Comments.
concerns, comments from the people
Right,
that, you know, A, it's not equitable. As you said, you know, they have a long lot. Some people had indicated they want to do some of the restoration on their own. And, you know, so, and it isn't like, I think that as in any city or any municipality or utility company, when you make a connection, they have to be qualified people and you'll give a list. Just like right now you'll have, I think, you know, we'll say sometimes places have lists for installers because they're certified, licensed, and familiar with the requirements within that community.
Jim brings up a good point that we need to give some thought to. The homeowners don't, I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry, Dave.
Don't.
We get mixed up all the time.
Don't compliment.
Hey, I'm sleep deprived today, so forgive me. But we need to be able to give advice to homeowners that don't know anything about it. Somehow we need to help them out.
Well, the decision hasn't been made yet, but
Yeah.
if we do,
Right.
it'd be a list and they'd have to be licensed and they'd have to have liability insurance. They'd have to come in and get a permit and we, you know, the GLUA's expert would look at it and say, yeah, that's doable. And then they would also be able to communicate with the homeowner and decide, you know, I know we've had people I've talked to that, well, I'm going to build a garage here, or I've got this going on, I'm going to do an addition. What do I do? You know, and each home is different.
Yeah.
The other thing I always heard is the equitable. You know, my house is only 20 feet from the, you know, the property line or where the sewer is. Why should I be paying as much? And so this takes in, you pay for what you get, I guess. And I, you know, feel it's a more equitable, fair, it's cost effective. It allows them to coordinate it. A lot of people said, I don't want to have them tearing up my yard during the 4th of July weekend. But, you know, I'd like to have them do it in September, October.
Please. Dealing with the design of the system, okay? There's different types of designs that are gonna be required. Homeowner has no clue. So then go to a contractor and the contractor can quote them on a design which is not feasible and think it's fantastic. Could be dealing with frost line, could be dealing with high water situations, could be dealing with heavy sand in their area. Okay? The homeowner is not qualified whatsoever to talk to that contractor.
We're not asking the homeowner to be a contractor. We're asking the homeowner to be involved in the scheduling of the whole project. The homeowner is the one that knows what they want done on their property. The contractor has, if Nick came to my house, I wouldn't tell Nick how to put my septic in. Nick would come and tell me how it's going to go. And then I would say, can I have the tank over there? Yeah, I could put it over there. That's the kind of communication. I think that what you're saying is, no, we're not having the homeowner be a contractor. That's not it at all. There's another thing. The homeowners may not be here. So when do I have Nick come to my house to work on this? I want to be there. Or maybe I don't need to be there because I trust Nick. Maybe I had a conversation with Nick and he knows exactly what I want and he comes and does the job. Nick has, and I'm sorry I'm using your name, Nick, okay, but he has the knowledge. We're not asking the homeowner to be a construction person or have the knowledge that Nick has. That's not it at all. Now, this is a work session. Appreciate you coming and saying what you're saying. We're just trying to have a conversation about how this goes. I think we've talked about a lot of different ways, but I think we've realized that if we hire somebody to come in to do all this general contracting work, we have, I think it was, I wrote it down here, $8.6 million was kind of a way to say, we think we can save it by having the homeowner do the coordination with the contractor who has the knowledge.
Project. And they would end up chasing the contractors or something.
Would there be any checks and balances on the subcontractors going from the road to the house?
Yeah.
Where they have to be licensed, permitted, insured, we've covered that, and they'd have to be qualified to do it.
Training and qualified. Then we would have,
And I would think,
have an inspector out there.
right, that's what I'm saying, that by then you'd have some management here. And an expert from the GLUA that can, I don't know, monitor that, check their work, make sure, obviously you gotta make sure it's done right. And anybody that's in the directional bore business is not just a fly by night, they do it for a living. So I would think that the chances of getting a bad subcontractor are pretty slim. I suppose it could happen, but.
My name is Jackie Birch and I live at 114 James Square. And I just wondered first of all, to me, this is quite a big change that's being proposed at this time. What is the approximate cost of running the lateral line per foot? Does anybody know? Because it seems like we're spending a lot of time talking about
Hey,
this.
Gary, do you have a cost per foot?
The directional drill it in?
Yeah, for the
Or
for the
open.
right of way to the home
Yeah,
per
from the
foot.
right of way to
approximate.
the.
Well,
Or
directional
open.
drilling right now is
Or an inch and a half.
probably, I would say you're probably around $25 a foot.
And would it be open cut?
Oh my God. I don't think you want to go. It all depends on the terrain. It depends on the trees. It depends on the landscaping. I mean, there's a lot of variables out there. If you go through a general contractor, you're going to add 10 to 15% on top of that subcontractor's cost. Plus all the risk involved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I just wondered because it seems like we're spending a lot of time talking about this, and I just wondered what kind of dollars are we really talking about? But I just had really just a few comments. I'd just like to start by reading this, and I'm sure you all remember this. Houghton Lake Resorter, August 25th, 2022. Dave Udi said that Higgins Lake residents cannot fund the majority of the project. And then he's quoted as saying, unless we get significant funding with loan forgiveness, both township boards have stated we won't move forward. I think as residents, we heard that a number of times from different people. And I think a lot of us, we've had a sense of trying to calm ourselves, thinking about this project, relying upon those things that were said to us. I also remember, and I might have a little bit of might not be an exact quote, but I can remember from the beginning, oh, easy peasy. The only thing as a resident that you're going to be responsible for is the hookup from your home to the tank and the electrical services. So, okay, I'm a little bit calmer, thinking that I'm not going to have to figure out a whole lot of stuff here. I actually had, Gary was actually to our home and looked at our setup and said, oh yeah, we won't have a problem putting that tank where you're at, where you want it to go. Because I had some concerns about that. And then he also told me that he really didn't think we should even be in the SAD district based upon the size of our lots, the population density, the soil conditions, the water table, all of that stuff. So, I've been trying to get as much information as I go along just to try to remain calm. But I do remember at one of these meetings that there was a GLUA member who said, and again, I'm probably not exact quote, but again, I thought this sounds like a pretty good deal. We will come right in to your home, sit down at your kitchen table and pick the right spot together for that tank to go. Okay, so again, I think that sounds pretty good. But now all of a sudden, we're talking about finding general contractors, and I'm not sure exactly where you guys live, but I've tried to find some general contractors lately. I've talked to a lot of other people who've tried to find general contractors for different things, and there's really not that many of them, especially that would be able to do directional boring down to 6 feet in depth. So I think that that's one thing as a board, when you evaluate this proposal, you really need to look at. I know when you see a lot of the natural gas expansion that's gone in, I don't think that that's done with directional contractors from the right of way to the house. I think that that was all a general that did that, just based on the trucks and the work that I saw going around town. So I mean, I understand what Gary's saying. I do understand why it might be less expensive in the long run, it might be, but in the short run, the homeowners are going to have to bear the burden of that cost. In addition to I think the original, like, real rough estimate from the house to the tank plus electrical, you were figuring maybe about $1,000 per house, and that I might be off on that, but I thought it was about right around 1,000. And now you have the right of way to the home at $25 per foot that the homeowner would have to pay for right up front, barring any additional stipends or anything like that. So, and I guess just in closing, I would just also like the board, just in general, and this is not just for the GLUA board, but also for the township board, is just consider what these costs really mean to us. I know, like a lot of people, or probably most residents, I just got the change in taxable value variation for my home. Good news is the township thinks my house is worth more money than it was last year, so that's good. But it also said that my estimated taxes will go up approximately $226 per year, which doesn't sound like a lot. But remember, we had 2 millage proposals that failed at this last go around. And, different people can debate the value of those millage proposals. I didn't think that either one was a bad proposal. I thought they both had good things in there. But the core ISD would have resulted in another $176 per year. The public safety one would have resulted in $352 per year, which would have bring my total tax change, looking at the change in taxable valuation, up to $754 per year. I'm not for a minute trying to say that Rick and I survive totally on our Social Security, but I know there are residents in our community that do that. Our Social Security increase this year together went up $1,452 per year. If these proposals would have passed, it would have been over half of our Social Security increase would have just been for tax increases. And I can't believe that as time goes on, most of our homes won't increase in values, just because the values had been so depressed because of what happened in 2008, and they have taken a long time to come back up. They're coming back up. I believe that those valuations will continue to increase. And I also believe that there's going to continue to be good millage proposals that are out there that, as residents, we are going to think that they're good. But when you look at these costs, plus the operational costs that we'll all have with with the collection, the cleaning of the septic tanks, the operation of the wastewater treatment plant, you get to a point where it doesn't matter how good something is, you just can't afford it. You just literally can't afford it. And I think that's really a serious thing, as we continue to go forward. I could read Mr. Udi's, promise again about both township boards, but I don't think you need to do that. I don't think I need to do that. I think you probably all remember that. So I guess that's, it's just it's my comments. And if, you've got the $25 per foot is a good thing to remember. Again, maybe come up with another estimate of what we think it's going to take from the house to the tank hookup, have people at least have some idea what they're going to be looked at having to pay right away. So those are just my comments.
Thank you very much.
But, we don't answer questions, but just to make it clear, if we do go this route of having the homeowner arrange for the installation of that hookup between the road and the tank, there's going to be a stipend to compensate you for that. So it's not you paying for it yourself.
We don't know, this,
Go this route or go back to the original. We're listening to public comments, we're judging them.
in the beginning, and it still is the case, that there'll be a hookup that the GLUA covers. In the very beginning, the citizens came and said, we don't think that's fair. There's a guy over there, there's a house over there that's 1,000 feet. And that's going to cost at $25 a foot, 400 feet is $10,000. 20 feet is $500. Why should that person get $10,000 and I only get $500? So this was not equitable. And we said, let's try to see how we can get it equitable. And today is a work session to discuss that. Yeah. The electrical and the hookup, and sometimes things get forgotten. There were times I had said, I think every meeting we should start at the beginning and talk about what was said in the very beginning so that those folks can hear what is there. But we forget about one aspect. And one aspect is, as we try to look at, well, can someone take out a loan to take care of the electrical if they don't have the money? Well, GLUA in the very beginning said, why don't we develop our own fund for those in need in our own SAD? Not a governmental thing that, by the way, you have to make less than $19,000 a year, I think it is, to qualify for any of these assistance financially. We said, let's take our sample of our SAD and work with private fund, family fund donations like the Dow family. And we went to them and they thought it was a wonderful thing and they had verbally committed to us. And we did some math and felt that we could get about $800,000 to $1 million in a fund to help those people that need money for that hookup. I asked Gary, is there any other municipality you worked with where the utility actually came up with a fund to help those people in need in their own community? He said, never heard of it, Dave. So that's something that, you know, we want to make this affordable. One more thing. When we go to the legislators or anywhere and ask them for grant money and grants money for our project, they say, do you have a project? Show us your project. How long far are you? How much will it cost? I mean, we're not going to give you $100 million or $50 million or $20 million because you want to put in a sewer. Show us your program. Show us your project. And we have to go down this path to show them what it is so that they can say, hey, you know what? This is real. Those people need some money. So we are fighting for our community tooth and nail to try to get funds for this project. Just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Additional questions? Just so you know, we'll have the regular meeting after this. Well, it starts at 7. And again, you'll have another opportunity to ask questions or comments then. And I guess one comment I was going to make is as indicated, you know, no matter what, you were going to have to meet with somebody to coordinate the activity on your work. So we're not asking you to do anything that you wouldn't have had to have done. It's just, would you rather work with a local? Can I use your name too, Nick? Would I rather have Nick come over, who's familiar with the community and knows the program? He knows exactly how to put all this stuff in. Or do I want to talk to somebody from Lansing to come over and talk to them and ask them and, you know, deal with somebody like, you know, from downstate and try to explain to them. And, you know, and I think my preference myself would be to talk to somebody that's local that we know, and I can always call him, and he's only 6 or 7 miles from my house, so I could tell him, hey, get over here and take care of this. So that's that. Does anybody, is Gary still here on them?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Did anybody have any more questions with Gary? Oh, there's a lady back here that had. Okay, please. Oh, to the board. Okay, thank you.
My name is Shirley Charninsky. I live at 104 Kenwood Avenue in Roscommon, Michigan. I love Higgins Lake. You guys keep throwing this enormous bill in front of our faces, but yet it's been 3 or 4 years. And if the lake has had such a tragic problem, why aren't you doing the most simplest thing while you're trying to shove this down our throats as making a protocol for each homeowner to send or bring into the township? They had their septic checked, what the status of it is, they're well checked. And by the way, I am not drinking my neighbor's sewer. My water is fine. Okay? My septic is cleaned every other year, 2 people in the household. I think, and Dave said in the beginning, we don't get the funds, this is dropped, but you guys continue to shove it down our throats. And like I said again, if this is really a problem, why are you not having the responsibility of each homeowner, each property owner to bring in here to let you know what their systems are like on their property? Why? Why has that simplest thing that every homeowner could afford to do at this time, why has this board not done that? Why has this township not done that?
This board does
Why
cannot pass
why
ordinances.
is the island
Yeah.
not involved?
I'm,
How many
can I
capped
ask,
sewers,
answer your question?
tanks are there? No, I'm not
Okay,
done.
okay, thank you.
How many capped sewers are on that island? How many new sewers tanks are on that island? Why are they not being talked about and wanting or having to also put in money for this project that is so important to you guys? I'm pissed. I'm not happy. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Um, try to remember everything you said. We think the island isn't. We can pump our solids every month if we want. It's the effluent and the liquid that goes into the ground that's the problem. As Steve King, the Central Michigan Health Department, has indicated several times, even a brand new septic puts the same effluent into the ground. Unfortunately, we have soils here that are sandy, coarse soils that don't have enough clay in them to keep the water from going through rapidly so it can take care of and treat those viruses, etc., in there. I asked Steve King, and the density that's around, we have struggled to have the isolation between septics and drinking wells. And as the health department has indicated, over half of the folks don't have room for a septic and a field. And if they tried to do that, then we would have wells that didn't have 50 feet. I asked Steve King, why 50 feet from a septic to a well? And he said, because we can't go 200 feet, which they would like to go 200 feet from a septic to a well. But our properties are so close together and so small that that's not feasible to do. We would like everyone in the watershed to be on the sewer. But that's not feasible either financially. So we've looked at this and we think we have a pretty good plan, and we're going down the path with a lot of support, and every day we do more, we get more support. I know there's been words that were used tonight, and I've read them before, about ramming something down someone's throat. I believe we're going on our 5th year of discussions, hardly ramming things down someone's throat. We are trying to convince those that own the money that we have a project that we have a program, that we know this is the right thing to do, and the support is there, and we are gaining some momentum. So we're pleased with that. We appreciate your comments. Your comments are not different than other ones we have heard. And we take those comments to heart. And we'd like to try to make it equitable and affordable. Thank you.
Lyon Township has passed an ordinance regulating septic.
To that.
Oh, you will. Okay,
Yes,
thank
I
you.
will. Eric Carlson, Lyon Township. I'm a trustee there as well as on this board. We have passed a septic tank ordinance in Lyon Township. It will require the registration of all the septic tank and fields in the township. It will require an inspection on all of them, and it will require repairs as recommended by the health department. This is a township-wide ordinance that will affect everybody. If this project falls apart, everybody in the sewer district will be the same as everybody else outside of it. There are some differences. If you have an old system, you're at the front of the list, so to speak. If it wasn't approved or maintained or have a record before 2004, there are time schedules for everyone to have their inspections. There's pump outs requirements. And again, the requirement to repair a bad septic tank and septic field. If the Central Michigan Department of Health requires that. So this isn't just the sewer system for the sewer system and for the special assessment district. It's a septic tank ordinance for the entire township. There's a complete copy available on the Lyon Township website, of course. And that too has been in the works for many years. And there's been many meetings on it. Our supervisor had town hall meetings, 3 or 4 to explain it. It's quite likely we'll have one more before it's implemented because it goes into effect April 1st. But then there's timelines of up to a year to have your registration and schedule all the activity that it requires. I can't recite it all from memory, but again, if you have an old system, or if you're in the SAD, you have 90 days to register your system. Because right now the health department doesn't have any follow-up. They'll issue a permit and they go away and they never come back. So they don't know unless there's a problem and the new permit is pulled. If there's been alterations, if it functions, if it's functioning correctly. So if this sewer system falls apart, can't get it, don't have the money, it's not affordable, whatever the problem is, the ordinance is there and it'll require the maintenance and correction of all the septic tanks in the township. And I would hope that other townships in the county would take up such a thing. That's my statement on that.
Is there any one quick? Because I would like to take a break before our regular meeting.
I just want to make a clarification regarding the USDA loans and grants and the information on from the USDA is based on household income, joint household income, and the figures for 2021 requirements for homeowners. It is age dependent. There's differences between grants and a loan, low interest loan. And I believe the household income as of 2021 was $34,750, according to the
Thank you.
information.
Okay. We're gonna go board comments, which I know nobody has a board comment. So then we'll ask for an adjournment.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn and they say aye if they're for that. Aye. Thank you. We'll be back for our regular meeting in 11 or 12 minutes. Thank you.
Right, all those guys were there. Installer guys, they're all licensed installers, licensed. And then there was a few other guys who think they might want to get in on it or something, maybe the inspection part only. But you had to take a class that we had the other day and then be approved by the health department and approved by our board. And then they're gonna do some random checks on your inspections. You have to inspect, ideally you would have one of the pumpers, because you have to look at it before and after. Because before you have to see that it's level, afterwards you have to look and inspect the tank. And then the health department's gonna go out and randomly audit or inspect the inspector. So. That's quite a record. Yeah, it's a record. Yeah.
Ready?
Call the meeting, the regular meeting of the Gerrish Land Utility Authority Board to order. Could we have a roll call?
Jim Barnwell,
Here.
Dave Hall,
Here.
Eric Carlson,
Here.
Phil Check, Jerry McKenna, here. Bill Lamb, absent. Tom Metcalf, absent.
Do the pledge of allegiance, please. Again, I think we have a few new people there. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Look at the agenda, and we couldn't have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make the motion. Aye.
Aye. Okay. Well, we have the minutes of the February 12th meeting. Have you had a chance to look at those?
To approve the minutes.
Is there a second? We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Old business. Update status of project implementation. I just wanted some of you were here when these engineers were here, but the hydrogeological investigation is going on. Back in 2021, just for those that aren't aware, there were 5 borings were conducted on the site and some other investigations were done. This February, they did 6 additional borings and installed monitoring wells at those 6 locations. As they mentioned earlier, they pulled samples and they're in the process of evaluating the samples that they pulled in the soils, and which time they will then, depending on where we stand, move on to a hydrogeological report, followed by a submittal to the Eagle for a groundwater discharge permit. Questions there? Grants and funding. We've been working, there's been a volunteer group and a number of people have been working on obtaining grants. To date, they've submitted for 2 grants. Well, I should say 4. They were supposed to, and monies today, there should be a total of 4 requests for funding out as we speak. They've looked at probably another half a dozen or to a dozen that we just didn't qualify or were not appropriate for our situation. We will continue to seek grants and funding. As the one person said, the goal here is to make this affordable. So we'll continue. We have one person that's real active in the grants, just so you know, volunteer, who's successfully, received grants in the past. One is, and the another individual who's been real helpful. They were both property owners in the SAD, but is an attorney. Oh, yeah,
Say there's 4 grants currently submitted that we're waiting to hear back on.
yeah, for grants and or funding requests. We've had contact with a number of foundations also. And we've talked to Eagle. We talked to a couple of people from Eagle relative to the clean water, and they, you know, kind of were helping us along with possibilities there. But the other individual I was going to say is an attorney, longtime attorney who just specializes in, you know, grants and grants funding, and is exceptionally good at putting words together and answering the questions. So we're hopeful that some monies will be forthcoming. We've also have received a number of, you know, donations from private individuals. In addition to the 50,000 reimbursable grant from the HLF and 10,000 from the HP, like HLPOA. Glad anybody, somebody out there. So we appreciate it all. And if anybody wants to come forward after the meeting, we'd be happy to take some of your money. And but the other thing we'd like to continue to ask you to give us your support and write to your legislators and people in the community for support of the project. Questions? Budget, we're working on our budget. It's required to have one at our next annual meeting. At this point, we've thrown some numbers around, given the board some. At this point, because we've not been in, say, operation for very long, it's pretty much, you know, what would we like to have come in and what would we like to spend. So we'll be talking about that at our budget meeting. I had Lisa Vandenbrink has given us some monies as to, you know, if we look at trying to get the bids done in 2016 and then, geez, 2026, and then they gave us one that, you know, draws it out to 2027. My goal, of course, is to try to move this along expeditiously. I know we've had some people who say that we've been dragging our feet and it's taken too long and we should be active, but we can only go as fast as the money comes in. But as I think I've mentioned in the past, you drag it out a year and you're on $100,000 project. If you figure 2% inflation rate, that's $2 million. You divide that by 4,000, what's that? I don't know, couple $100 per individual property owner. So it, and you know, we want to move it along and keep our, you know, at least set of goals that hopefully we can meet. I guess as far as the budget, I guess, Bill, did you have a number that you could just say as far as donations that we have? Yeah, why don't you?
Yeah, I'm amazed at the donations we're receiving from private individuals. Currently, we have over $19,000 in the bank account and a few uncashed checks that we just got today. And we spent through the DNR, we spent $1,350. So we're well over $20,000 donations from individuals. It's amazing to me. Thank you, everybody.
Good.
As far as the budget, Jim and I met with a person called Jim Anderson. He's the individual that's has been doing the audits of the local municipalities. And he gave us all the information we need and resources we need to put together our budget. So next meeting, I will have the budget ready to be discussed and hopefully approved. And he suggested we do it on QuickBooks, but I'm going to do it in Excel until we get going. QuickBooks is expensive and it's something we should do in the future, but with our limited expenditure, we can definitely do it in Excel. And so we've got the numbering system, we've got the a good forecast of the amounts. No problem put together a budget.
Thank you, Phil. Going on to new business. I want to bring up the aerial photography and ground control. As we heard earlier in our workshop, it's one of the necessary steps that we need to do in the very near future. A lot of the other work is dependent upon that as far as mapping, the assessing and things like that. And the time to fly, of course, is when the leaves are off, which would be today, would be the perfect day. And so I'd like to have a resolution authorizing the chair or co-chair to engage the professional services to complete the aerial photography and necessary aerial ground control. And we've got the estimate of that is 25,000 is the aerial photography, and 10,000 is the ground control. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion and a support. All those that are,
Discussion?
oh, yeah, okay, discussion, please.
We're gonna have the money in the paper.
Yes. We've got the 50,000 reimbursable grant and 20 in the bank.
Okay.
So I feel comfortable.
That was my question.
Okay.
So I have another question. So normally we'd put together a budget and the budget would be approved to include that sort of item. And if not, then we'd have some discussion about multiple bids or that sort of thing. But in this case, I think the amount is rather insignificant. And I would recommend that we go ahead with it.
That's a professional services contract
Yeah.
and we going through police and Vandenberg to, like, when we did the drilling, they gave us three, they had three, they had included three, so. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passed. The next new business is the April regular and the annual meetings. We currently have, I think, 3 people that won't be here in April. Myself, Dave, if I remember right, and Tom Metcalf. So I'd like to have a motion to cancel that meeting and set our May meeting for May 13th. Our next regular meeting for May 13th. That's Monday, second Monday.
Okay with me.
Need motion for that?
Please.
A motion to cancel the April meeting and have our next meeting on May 13th.
Yeah, because we didn't go that far on this, so make sure we got it. At 7 PM, Gerrish Township.
I'll support it.
Okay, we have a
7 PM.
7 PM. Yeah. We have a motion and a second.
I second.
Discussion.
We have on here annual meeting too. Going to
I'm gonna
Combo.
do that as a separate motion. Okay, if I may.
yes, you-
Thank you very much. Okay, all those in favor of canceling the April meeting and setting the next regular for May 13th? Say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. And we talked about the annual meeting. It's a meeting where we do the budget. And also we'll have to elect, the officers. So that's the other reason I wanted to have it in May, so that everybody has their chance to take my job. So, yeah, or at least if they'd like it, they're welcome to it. So anyway, I'd like a motion to set the annual meeting for May 13th, 2024, in conjunction with the regular meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I have a motion to annual meeting to be the same day.
Second. Any further discussion? Yeah, I think we should have them as two separate one. Maybe I'll post one, start at 7 and 7:30. Both on May 13th, Monday. Pardon. Yes, I'd like, that's the annual, this is the annual meeting. So we've had a motion and support. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Okay, motion passed. And it'll be, that too will be a Gerrish. Okay. We have some discussion items here. Is there anybody on the board that wants to talk? Additionally, we've talked quite a bit about the project tonight and the budget. And we.
I'd like to say something about the meetings. These meetings, it took us a while, but we have equipment now and we can record the meetings, which we are for this one. And the meetings will be posted on YouTube. And there'll be a link on our website, the glua.org website. And the public or anyone will be able to review the meetings. And also there'll be a Zoom link on our website if they want to watch it live. And for that reason, the meetings until Lion upgrades to this kind of setup, I think this is a benefit to us to have it Zoomed, recorded and put on our website.
Agreed.
So just want to throw that out.
And one item we'll need to discuss at the next, I didn't mean, but just for your consideration, next meeting, we'll talk about the next year's meeting schedule. I'd like to open it now to public comments.
Kevin Kessler, Lyon Township. I just wanted to update everybody on the project I've been working on. As I mentioned in the past, I'm working with SANE, international nonprofit who's been trying to develop a tool to help identify areas, untapped areas of consensus in communities. And they want to use Higgins Lake as a pilot project for that. And they've had a company developing a implementation of that, and they've got their prototype ready. So as soon as I can meet with the head of the company and the academic who created the process, I'll be starting a sort of simplified proof of concept to apply here. And what I envision is getting some people from about 6 to 10 people from various organizations and groups in the community that are involved in the sewer project or opposed to the sewer project to go through this test and make sure we have it working. And then when we have the full version, they'll be able to go back to their groups and hopefully say, encourage their members to participate in the whole project. So I know it's been a long time that I've just been talking and doing nothing, but now I'm actually starting to get things moving, and I will be talking with the leadership of various groups to try and get them involved and get moving on building a community dialogue and getting everybody to work together. So that's all. Thank you very much for your work. I hope to have a timeline by the end of the week, but I was supposed to have a meeting today, and the academic that I was meeting with was in the hospital with her mother, so it didn't happen. And it's when these meetings get scheduled and I get a beachhead. I will definitely put together a timeline and let everybody know. Thank you.
Evening, I'm Tim O'Rourke, resident of Gerrish Township. I've got a couple of things maybe from the prior meeting. First of all, I agree with Dave about the Zoom. This is a big deal to be able to Zoom and let people tune into what you're doing and what your conversations are. I'm hoping that all the townships take it up at one point and be able to move around and still be able to accomplish that. So bravo for getting that done. The whole discussion that happened at the prior meeting is sort of upsetting because we're 4 years into the project. And now we're talking about changing something to make it non-turnkey. When that's been the discussion all along, that it's going to be a turnkey project for the homeowner. And that's all you're going to have to do. It's two things. Get yourself an electrical contractor to run a wire out there and hook up your 4-inch or whatever your discharge is from your house into the new tank. And you're done. Everything else is done for you. And that whole discussion that happened earlier is a little bit upsetting. I hope you don't take it to heart, because I think there's a bunch of fallacies that you were just given by your expert. Breaking this contract down into 3 or 4 contracts is going to cost you a huge amount of money. Regardless of what he says, that's not a true statement. If you put 4 small contracts together one day after another, I'll tell you, as a 46-year bidder on contracts, I'm going to let the first contract go by. I'm going to put 50% on it. So I want the first one. And if I get it, I want to make a huge profit off it. I want to be the only bidder with a 50% margin, 100% margin. I'll see what the first bid was. And if there's 2 other bidders, then I know I can take the third project and I can reduce my profit a little bit and still be in the game. So to say that you can put 3 or 4 project bids out day after day after day and be out a winner as an owner is the most nonsense I ever heard in my life. You are going to pay up the ass for it. You won't be able to afford what the bids come in at, and you have to throw them all out and start over again. I have a couple other problems with it. If you put 4 different, let's say you're successful and you get 4 different bids and you move forward and you have 4 contracts going on with 4 different contractors, how many of F&V's people are you going to have to hire to watch that shit go on? A lot, because one contractor can only be in so many places. You only got so many crews and so many people. You get 4 different contractors with 2 or 3 subcontractors working for each one of them around this lake. You won't have enough people to watch, just watch what's going on, let alone build it. We're having quite a long discussion back here while you guys are discussing this proposal and why there's just so many fallacies that you were fed at that last thing. I hope you just throw it all out, start over again and say, we're going to stay with what we agreed, what we sold the taxpayers. What we promised the taxpayers was a turnkey operation. Let's stick with that. If it goes, it goes. If it fails, it fails. But at this date, 3 or 4 years into this whole thing and all the discussions we've had back and forth about what's covered, what's not covered, who's going to do what, to even consider that radical of a change at this point, I just would not want to be at your next meeting. I don't think you'll find enough contractors to bid on this work. If you turn it into something else than what you've already come up with, a general contractor can go out and find people to work for him. He'll have them all lined up before he puts his number in. He's going to know that I need 5 different small guys to run around and do all this stuff. I'm going to set them all out. I'm going to get their prices. I'm going to put them in and I'm going to hand you a bid. That's America. That's how it works. They do all the hard work for you. But if you break this up into 4 small bids, 4 different contractors, you put up the onus on the homeowner of doing a bunch of things that he wasn't required. He didn't think he was required to do. Wow. I'm just amazed that you're even talking about it. The equitability thing, I don't think was about so much for the people that were asking you for an equitable thing, was not that person gets 400 foot of line driven into his house and I pay the same thing and I'm only 50 foot off the line. That's not what people were saying. That's not equitable. What they were saying was, you've got a $10 million lakefront home with 8 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms and washing machines and all that other shit that goes along with that property. And then you've got a 2-bedroom cabin back here or a 1-bedroom cabin back here that probably doesn't even have a flush and toilet in it. And that's going to be the same. You're going to require that I pay the same that that person pays. That's the inequitability of this whole thing, not whether you're a couple hundred feet off the line and he gets something free that I don't get. I should have to pay less because you gave him something more. That wasn't the point of the whole conversation. If that's the way you took the point of the conversation, you're mistaken. The municipal bonds question is out there because all of a sudden we've heard report after report that there is no grant funding available. If there is, it's very small amounts. You're not eligible for it. So let's turn to the municipal bond market. So is it what you're suggesting to this group, to this public, that you're just going to bond this $115 million project and hope that you can come get some grant money year after year after year to cover the cost of paying back those bonds? Because those bonds have to be paid back every year. They become due every year. And you have to come up with the money to pay them back. So what happens if your people that are in the SAD just flip you off and don't pay you 1 year? What are you going to do? You can't take my house from me because I get 2 or 3 years before you can touch my house. I know that. Everybody knows that. So what are you going to do? Can you even sell bonds on a project like this at any kind of a given rate with a populace that's 50-some% opposed to it? I just heard, oh, listen, if you think that you have 51% in support, then put it up for a fucking vote.
Yeah, you're
don't
not saying the language. I know, but we appreciate your comments.
care.
We appreciate your
I
comments.
don't
Thank you.
care.
I know you don't care.
And I can stand here and say any words I want to say to a
We
board that is
appreciate-
messed up like you are.
Thank you.
Because in America, I have free speech.
Thank you.
And so I can shit, I can fuck, I can damn you when you're pulling this kind of nonsense.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? We'll go Dave and then I think John, did you have your?
Give everybody a chance behind me. Dave Kniffik. I live at 2834 West Higgins Lake Drive in Roscommon. One thing that I want to clarify that Gary had commented about the price per foot for doing horizontal drilling. In their 2020 preliminary engineering report, they had the cost in there at $50 per foot. It's really more around $50 per foot because you're looking at a deeper frost line that you've got to go. They got to put that line down deeper than the 42 inches. So I agree more with their preliminary report of the cost than what Gary gave. And, that should have been researched since they actually did a report on that. The other thing that came up that I heard was dealing with the island and that you guys are going to be taking care of the island and you got solutions or you're doing something. If you're going to be running a line from the island to the shore, you're going to have to get the U.S. Corps of Engineers involved. And the U.S. Corps of Engineers will review what you're trying to do, and they will give you alternative solutions if possible. This is not something you can just run out and do. One, you can't just take DR 11 pipe and put it underneath the ground. You can't do it. The expansion contraction will wear on the rocks. You're going to have a problem. Okay. So I'm trying to bring it out of, fantasy land into reality for you guys. The way you'd have to do it is you'd actually have to somehow sleeve the pipe or build a tunnel. But like I say, you've got to get the U.S. Corps of Engineers involved. It's not something that you're going to be able to do without them. And there are permits and requirements all down that. So you may want to look into that for that. The other thing where I keep hearing that the step system is less expensive than a gravity system. You're basing your step system on 20 years of life before it has to basically start getting all the components replaced. Motors, when you say the motor will last 20 years or 15 years, that's the winding of the motor. That does not talk about the rebuilding of basically the pump part that wears out 5 to 8 years. So there is so much misleading information, and I'm not going to blame the board for it because it's information you're receiving. People have to understand the gravity system's just as expensive, or at least it's just at the same price. When you look at the step system's going to wear out in 20 years, you haven't even paid for it, and you're starting to pay again. So your maintenance and operation costs are going to go through the roof, and that's everybody's sewer bill will just go nuts. The other thing that Jerry had commented, because he talked to someone in Montana that had the step
Correct.
system. And one of the issues with the step system, I've named others, but it's the screens. High maintenance, extremely high maintenance. They clog for every reason under the sun. So it's not a system you can just put in and think, hey, it's going to operate real well. There is just going to be tens of thousands of dollars just in dealing with the screens. And that's what I can keep saying, is you don't understand the system. And I had an opportunity with a company to actually sell this system. I turned it down. They came to me. I didn't come to them because of my knowledge. And I can prove it because it's in writing and emails where I turned it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I think John was going to be next.
Yeah, John Varda, Lyon Township. I just want to say that I do fully support the actions of the GLUA board, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. I also fully support the septic ordinance that just was recently passed in Lyon Township. Eric, thank you for your labors on that. And I also fully support a step sewer system around the lake, Gerrish and Lyon Township. I understand that there are variables, both dependent and independent, that directly affect entire projects. Things happen, projects are dynamic, and you have to adapt. People have to adapt, you have to listen, and we all have to understand that things don't always happen the way that you expect, but you have to roll with the punches and you have to try and come up with the best solution. I appreciate the fact that you guys are going to professionals and looking for solutions in alternatives and lowering costs. I personally think that we get to the best solution at that point. I'm not getting excited. I think there's a long way to go before we get to the point where we make some decisions. So I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other individuals. Oh, anybody on, what do you call it, Zoom? Want to speak? I don't know how it works. I'm technologically challenged. Yeah. Anyone on Zoom want to ask a question at this time? Or make a comment? Please raise your hand. Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll open it up to board comments. Jerry.
Good meetings tonight, lots of good input, both pro and against. But thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Eric.
I just think we've got a long, long ways to go, so. I'll say it again, and I'm on record saying it. We've got to make it affordable somehow, and that was the effort there to change the turnkey part of it. I don't know if it's as bad as it sounds,
to make that change, but if it saves money, it saves money. Guess it's a wait and see, long ways out.
You wanna go, Phil? Please.
Let's start out with the upward.
No, you can't.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So again, I appreciate all
Bill?
the work.
Bill, is your thing on?
Appreciate all the work that not only the board's doing, but there's a lot of volunteers in the community that are also doing a lot of work, good work. And I appreciate the donations we've received. I'm amazed by them, actually. With that, I wanted to express a personal point of view here. I was looking at the Higgins Lake United website, and they say their purpose is to raise gift donations to help educate Higgins Lake parcel owners in the Special Assessment District regarding a proposed sewer project. But yet, the director of the Higgins Lake United came out with an article.
Oh, back in the microphone.
The director of the Higgins Lake United came up with an article in The Voice that is untrue in many respects. One, he talks about a recently announced new sewer study. I know of no recently announced sewer study. And he goes on to say, they finally conclude a new study is needed to try to rescue their plans to spend $130 million of public monies or more. $130 million, that's been obsolete for years. The price, in case Higgins Lake United doesn't know, is estimated to be $115 million. End of story, not 130. I looked online. So online, there's a public filing with the state of Michigan that includes the directors, one of which is the author of this article.
Hey. Hey.
Yeah. We have a website. It's glua.org. And on the website, we've recently put in the latest frequently asked questions. And of course, I said earlier that we'll have links to the YouTube of these meetings. So we want to have the website to be a nucleus for folks to come and get the information that this board has communicated. So the website, people can go to it, but I just wanted to update that we've got frequently asked questions, and you should look at our website and use that as an informational source. One more thing, turnkey is kind of a slang term. And there's really three things. We said the electrical needs to be upgraded to the box, and the homeowner is responsible for the pipe, the gravity pipe from the house to the tank. The third thing is that the homeowner communicates with the contractor. That never changed. In fact, somebody said this earlier today that I'll just quote the words. I'll try to remember the words. We were told someone would come to our house and we would sit down with them. That's the third thing. So it's not just two. And I think that we are honoring what we said we would do. We're just trying to make it equitable and try to make it fair and cheaper or less expensive. Good word.
I don't like to use the word cheap.
Thank you.
Sorry. You're right.
That's it.
Thank you. I guess at this point, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on leaving here? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you.
Next meeting, May
13th at Gerrish Township.
Well, everybody, I just wanna say, I'm glad you guys are here doing all this, but we need to be nice to the board, right? I don't want to hear any language, I don't wanna see any of that, I don't want you to be rude. Well, we're gonna be asking you, right? Is that fair? Is that fair?
Thank you.
That's fair.
You can't ask him to leave.
I can ask you to keep it. Okay.